Hello all, welcome back to the Mantraverse, and indeed the Mantra Chorus and Mantra Bridge and Middle Eight. Your mileage may vary, but we're on a small island here in the UK, so there's not an awful lot of mileage. I just thought I'd take a look at a song that Tamara Hayden put out called Is It Enough, that we wrote together. I'm currently sort of in the process of maybe giving my own cover a go of it. So we'll see how that goes for Mantra Fox. And just thought I'd do a bit of an analysis of where we came from with the lyrics, if you're interested. So subject matter, anti-war protest song. Strummy acoustic guitars, that kind of thing, right? 60s kind of callback sort of thing. Retro music for Mantra Fox. What are you thinking? How out of character? Yeah. So it's interesting because the first verse was I helplessly stand on an opposite skyline, watching, waiting to hear. And one of the Academy mentors suggested that we go the other way around and put that in as the second verse. So that's what we ended up doing. And we had the original, what was the second verse, first line, which is now the first verse, was originally traversing hundreds of merciless miles. And while there was some lovely alliteration there, the traversing was maybe a bit traversing, sort of to open the song. And you need then that opening statement. So we went 500 miles, 10,000 tears. So it's that sort of... maybe that callback to sort of that protest feeling, maybe that's captured a bit more. Apparently, I think that was suggested by Paul Statham, songwriter extraordinaire. Yeah. So 500 miles, 10,000 tears. We've got some numbers there, just sort of to give you that like a feeling, evoking a sense of this clinging to bags filled with blood-shattered dreams. In Tamara's version, we held blood out and just went with shattered dreams. But from looking at it and talking to Andrew Rollins, another amazing professional songwriter, his suggestion was, put blood shattered dreams in, because the brutality of war is there. And this is one of the problems, the lines that we had to straddle here for Tamara's release. How kind of bloody did we want to make it, basically? Because you've got this, you don't want to go senselessly visceral into what's happening, but you want to dig in enough and kind of shock. And we had this conversation about stuff like Bob Dylan's Masters of War and some really strong lines and things in that. But so I'm probably putting blood shattered back in just for the impact's sake, and just trying something different. Mothers and children, where are you going? Into the darkness, out of this nightmare. Truth is, no one can unsee this horror. Is it enough that the sun will rise? The same for me, the same for you. And in the original demo that I did, where I was just on the acoustic guitar like that, that was the bit that I was originally singing before we knew what it was going to be about. The same for me, the same for you. And that's what Tamara was like, oh yeah, let's make that the refrain, right? So it's a short refrain line. So you might notice that there's not really a lot of rhyming going on in this song either, which is another thing, that people that really like rhymey songs, we go for it. But on the other hand, Paul Statham really liked the lyrics this way, the way we had them. So it's a matter of taste. And I think for a lot of songs where I will just rhyme like crazy and have loads of internal rhymes and that, it's something a bit different, Verse 2, I hopelessly, or helplessly, I can't even read my own writing and I don't remember which it is I wrote there. Stand on an opposite skyline, which, is, I like that as a line. Watching, waiting to hear, because it's one of those strong visual lines. It shows rather than tells, and sort of gets you having to think. Watching, comma, waiting to hear. So there's a pause there. So the second line of the first one was clinging to bags filled with blood-shattered dreams. So it's very busy. Ba, 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 ba. Whereas this is watching, waiting to hear. So there's a noticeable difference in the pace that has occurred into verse 2. And that we did on purpose as prosody, because it's watching, waiting to hear. So we've waited. Yeah. How many children will die or be orphaned, awoken by bombs, chaos and terror, boots on the ground, big wheels in motion. So it's that trying to evoke a sense of, the visual, but just like snippets, like we're coming down, we're like trying to scan and pan and tilt and look here and there at kind of stuff that's going on, but we're not focusing on any one thing. It's this whole chaotic collage. Is it enough that the sun will rise? The same for me, the same for you. Basically, is it enough? Is that enough? Is there more that we could do? Are we in an equal position? Not really. The threat is very different. It's a different kind of threat from the country that is currently, being threatened at that time of war. And, this happened to be done at the time of the Ukraine invasion, in fact. So, it's a shame that this song, and indeed all the anti-war songs like from the past, still remain relevant, and unfortunately probably still will into the future. So again, you can apply it as you see fit to whatever war of choice in the future, unfortunately, right? Into the bridge. Will we ever know peace? Can we end this senseless suffering? Opening up with two questions instead. A bridge is a great place for you to take a change of direction, a different point of view, maybe start asking some questions. When, why, what? Hey, what about you? Senseless suffering, a little bit of alliteration there. No one comes out of war unscathed. And the intention really there was to say, well, do you know what? It actually even harms the aggressor force, because they're having to do things. That in war there's usually a kind of bad guy or a perceived one, you know what I mean? And it's the aggressor force or whatever, the one that's doing the atrocities or whatever. I mean, that might be a bit small-minded or whatever, but neither side, where you've got these troops that are being called up that don't necessarily really want to be there, and that's suffering as well. The scars that remain will tell their own story. Just, going out as a response to the line before it, basically. And then into the final verse of a campaign of heartbroken, sunken-eyed soldiers, which is a really poetic line at that point. And it really does kind of like play back to the stuff that we've just told you, and then we've widened the view, we've widened your point of view by saying, well, this hurts everyone. And then we play on that, and we're at ground level here for verse 3. A campaign of heartbroken, sunken-eyed soldiers on both sides, right? We had a regime of conflict, but we changed that to toiling conflict, siege of machines, because, regime starts to sound like politicized, and I think toil is like a stronger kind of visual word anyway. So there's all these considerations, siege of machines. So there's some nice internal rhyme happening there, you see. So we've at least got those things and some of the alliterations. So those things, instead of the classic rhymes, they're kind of gluing the pieces together as best as they can, instead. We used to have combatants stare at each other bewildered. So we changed that to brothers stare at each other bewildered, to really try to get you to think, that actually all of these combatants ultimately are on the same side. It's just that these geographic fences have been put up, but the whole thing is absolutely ridiculous, and we have nothing to actually fight over, really, and no one really has to start anything, or or create a situation that puts pressure on anybody to start or provokes. But in the very next line, in fact, then plays to that: an unprovoked war under cavernous skies, because from the other point of view, that it's like I think Tamra was very strong about that, and she was very much in particular thinking about the Ukraine war, which it's at the time of recording, it's it's still a thing, unfortunately, and we can only hope that resolves for them. But an unprovoked war, this idea that you shouldn't really be able to provoke anything, someone calls you a name, you don't really have a right to go hit them or anything, and that sort of thing. So I suppose, if you attack them first, then you're the one making the war. So it's like, you could starve them of food, for instance, and then force them to have to combat you, I suppose. But then that sort of is a war in of itself, isn't it? For example, under cavernous skies, and again, that was really coming at this visual side again, cavernous skies, this idea that you're having trouble maybe seeing the sun, and maybe challenging the fact that, well, can you even see the sunrise? This idea that there's so much smoke and clouds and like denseness, the idea that all the fire and the smoke and that has gone into the sky, and it's maybe created like this cavernous roof in the air. It was just this idea, this feeling that it could do that. And I don't know, and this is one of these original line sort of thing, ear-splitting violence arising inferno. And I think it was probably just a bit too much. So we went, how many will live? Too many have died. Because, I think we've showed enough. So then back to a statement again, just to underpin it, because we're on our way out. So we want to start making statements again, and then into, is it enough that the sun will rise? The same for me, the same for you, the same for me, the same for you, the same for me, the same for you. And you can sort of apply your own depth to that as well, essentially. So that's what the intention was in writing it, and some of the mentality towards writing it. However, I don't necessarily feel that there's a this is what the song is about entirely kind of explanation for any song ever. Because as soon as you put a song out there, it's not yours anymore. It belongs to the people listening to it, and then they determine what it means to them, and that is completely valid. And in any other kind of interview or something, I would just say, anti-war protest song. And, that's what it is, because all war sucks. And, let's hope we can change this world and do something different going forward. Is it enough? Hopefully a song that will be coming from Mantra Fox soon. See you at the next one.